Right now, there is a large caravan of migrants heading from southern Mexico towards the United States southern border, and they're comprised of members from all sorts of nations, including Venezuela, Colombia, Haiti, Afghanistan, Nepal, and others trying to get into the country before Election Day in 2 weeks. Victor Avila is joining me now. He's a retired ICE Supervisory Special Agent, native of El Paso, and author of the book Agent Under Fire, A Murder and a Manifesto. Victor, it's great to have you back on the Scott Sands Show.
Great to be back with you, Scott.
So we see these migrant caravans more and more frequently, especially under the Biden-Harris administration, but it happened right before Donald Trump took office in 2016 as well.
Yeah, but this one's a little different. Other than the numbers are coming and they're already showing up at our Texas southern border, this one's a little different because of you mentioned the type of individuals in these caravans, what we call special interest aliens, SIAs, amongst the groups, which is these aliens that come from countries that are possibly sponsored by terrorism. And that's what makes this very, very different, a big national security issue. Plus, you see two things are happening here at the same time. One, they think Trump's going to win, so they're making their way to our border. But two, the Biden-Harris administration had made a deal with the old Mexican government and the old President Avila, who's gone now. Well, that deal doesn't exist anymore. That deal consisted of them holding them for a while to help each other out with their elections. Mexico had their election in July. Their new president just hit their office on October 1st. And all of a sudden that deal is gone. So these individuals that you see coming have been in Mexico for a while. And so the valve has been open and there is no deal anymore to hold them back. And Mexico is doing nothing now to at least try to detain them from coming up to our border. And so now you're going to see this flow, not just now until November 5th, but especially after November 5th. Trump wins, you're going to see a flood of them coming in between that period, between November and January 20th.
And these are not just South Americans and Central Americans, as you alluded to. These are people from Afghanistan, from China. And again, this is not a nod against immigration at all. Our country was built upon immigrants. It's a problem with illegal immigration and people who are unvetted coming into our country, unaccounted for, and staying in our country that we're concerned about.
That's the key, is that they're not being vetted properly. We don't know who they are. Another issue is the CBP One app. A lot of these individuals don't want to even go through that anymore. They've abandoned going through the CBP One app, which would grant them a parole to come into the country. They're ignoring that at this point. They rather walk and come up to the border. And this is a big issue. And the problem is that we're finding out the public safety issues around our country way too late, when one of these illegals commits a crime against one of our U.S. citizens, which is happening on a daily basis. I'm getting a text or an email or a message almost every single day now, Scott, of an illegal alien committing a crime against one of our U.S. citizens, and that is completely unacceptable because we have enough crime already to deal with in our own communities. Now we have to absorb this type of crime from people from all over the world, and it's really wreaking havoc in the communities, especially the small ones. Forget the New Yorks, Chicagos. We know what they're going through, but I'm talking about small counties and cities where they're really being affected by the amount of crime that some of these individuals, I'm not saying all of them commit additional crimes, but a lot of these do, and a lot of them are linked to cartels, the Tenda Aragua that you've heard a lot about, the Venezuelan gang, and many, many others are here for a different purpose. They're here with a different agenda, and that's what makes this very different and very concerning.
I'm glad you mentioned the CBP One app. I want to get to that in just a second. We're talking with Victor Avila, a retired ICE Supervisory Special Agent. You can get his book at agentunderfirebook.com. Excuse me. As you're talking about the migrant caravan, which is referred to as God Guides Us, this is a large group. They're making their way towards the border all at once. But when they get to the border and get closer to the border, they don't cross as one large migrant caravan. This is where the coyotes come into play, and drug traffickers, gang traffickers are paid by these migrants to help sneak them across the border, further enriching some of these gangs in Mexico.
That's absolutely right. So there's these, the different cartels that own different plazas in Mexico or different territories, they then start separating the unaccompanied minors, the family units, the single adult males, the single adult females, into different groups, and they're the ones that are navigate them and say, you're going to go through Eagle Pass, Texas, you're going to go through Del Rio, Texas, you're going through Arizona, no, you're going to go through El Paso. And so the cartels, you're absolutely right, are the ones that are dictating where these individuals are, and you're not going to see 700 of them come up. Although in Eagle Pass, Texas, I'll tell you that we're getting groups of about 100 to 250 at one time. So there are large groups coming up already because they don't want to be holding them on the Mexican side either. They start building up, and they release the valve and they let them come. And it's a continuous movement as they start paying. They start shifting them around. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine over there that the cartel has been doing for a long time, at least the last 4 years. And now we have a huge problem because Border Patrol is not there on the line. We are on the Texas side. You have Texas DPS, at least trying to maintain some kind of law and order down there. But Border Patrol is now kind of reshifting because a lot of things have happened here in the last several months. The numbers came down. Border Patrol personnel have been shifted around. So now it is kind of chaotic down there, kind of reassessing to see where do we put personnel to be able to not to keep them and to keep them from coming into the country. As you know, the Biden administration is still allowing them in. The catch and release program still exists. They're still going to be processed and they're still going to be allowed in. So here we go, what we've been talking about for the last several years. They're going to turn themselves in. They're going to do this quasi process, and they're going to be making their way into your hometown. The buses, the airplanes, all of that, none of that has stopped, Scott. That has continued throughout. That movement of illegals throughout our country has never ended. It's just that the media kind of stopped reporting on it.
And, you know, as you talk about the chaos there, the Border Patrol agents, the ICE agents that I speak with, they're not able to do their job. They're not actually able to actually patrol and keep a safe border for the United States. Instead, they've had to resort to doing administrative duties, doing paperwork, and babysitting in some cases some of these migrant camps after they do cross into the border. And they're not able to protect our country and keep our country safe now because of everything else they've been tasked to do. And as they process that paperwork, most of these migrants have a 6, 7, 8 year waiting period before their case is ever even heard in court. And we know that we're going to lose track of them in that time.
That's very true. And one of the big issues going on in the last couple of months is the number of gotaways. And these are the illegals that are not wanting to turn themselves in, that are avoiding detection altogether, especially in the El Paso, Texas area, which where I'm from. Let me tell you, it is the wild, wild west over there. So now you have Border Patrol concentrating on these gotaways, trying to nab them as they jump the wall, as they, try to avoid detection to the country. When you have then a group of, 300 turning themselves in, at one point they're going to have to split the personnel. They're not going to have more personnel. They'll have to figure out what to do. Either you let the gotaways go and go and process the ones that are turning themselves in. Something's got to give here, and this is what causes these loopholes, huge loopholes in our national security.
Where you mentioned the CBP One app. We don't really have time to get into this too in depth, but the White House and CBP trying to take a victory lap today, saying that fewer migrants were apprehended between ports of entry of the southern border in September than any other month since August of 2020. The numbers were just under 54,000 who crossed illegally in September, down from a high of 250,000 in December. Well, again, this is just fudging the numbers, because the CBP One app has allowed 2.4 million people into the country quasi-legally in the last 2 years. So they're just shifting the numbers from one column in the spreadsheet to another now.
Especially not counting them as illegals. They actually are giving them a permit, and they're walking through the pedestrian lane at our port of entries, in our airports, and they this victory lap of the numbers coming down. They're not actually coming down. You're just not counting them as illegal aliens. Although all of this, the CBP One app and the parole and everything that we've been talking about for the last several years, is 100% illegal, and all these people are going to find themselves very quickly here with absolutely no status and due for removal.
Victor Avila, a retired ICE Supervisory Special Agent. He's got a terrific book you should get called agentunderfirebook.com is the website to buy. Agent Under Fire, a murder and a manifesto about the ambush by cartel members against he and his partner, Jamie Zapata, in 2011. Victor, it's always nice to have you on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Scott.